Well, hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this moment of advice. I recently started creating some content, financial content. And you know what? I decided to say, why not just put it out there? There are small tips or a small wrap on it. They're divided in five main questions. And it's all about improving your credit, cutting your credit card, start budgeting, which, by the way, those three are linked. It also covers how to get approved for a mortgage, just in case one of your goals is to buy a real estate property, and the last one is how to start investing. So, well, in a normal scenario, when you start developing someone on the financial industry, um, one of the first or last things that you approach is the investing side. All right, so here's how we start. When someone is brand new to investing, there are multiple questions that come up, and I was considering actually going into Google and checking some of the most common questions when you start investing. And what I found out with that is that those are pretty much the same similar questions that I've been dealing with during my entire career as a financial advisor. So some of those questions, actually, when you get someone brand new to investing, one of the approaches is, what do I start investing on that is kind of safe, that is a good start for me? Well, from the moment you ask that question to the moment that you actually have an answer for that person, there are multiple steps. So number one, like if you met someone on the street and that person asks you a question, how would you think will look together within the next 3 years if we were to sleep together tonight? I'm pretty sure you're gonna be like, oh well, wait a moment. There are many things that probably we wanna ask before we go into that kind of deep question. Do you snore? Are we suitable to be together? Do we live in the same country? Do you know if I'm visiting, if I'm not? You get it. You get the idea. When you start investing, when you ask that question about what's the safest investment, so number one, investing, it's something that you might want to consider away from that word of safe investments. There is not such a thing. So investing is a long-term process. Investing, it's something that the word says itself, invested. You put all your efforts, you put all your energy, and you look for the long run with long-term goals. So if I were going to ask you right now, what are your long-term financial goals? Would you be able even to describe them? So those are some of the questions that we need to be ready to prepare to answer if we really are asking that question about what's the safest investment? Investment in everything. So just to give you an idea, if you want the safest investments, one of the safest thing to invest on are the GICs, and other countries are called CDTs. Well, those GICs is guaranteed investment return. So you make a contract with a financial institution where you put certain amount of money locked in for X amount of days, or the time frame could be days, months, or years. And then you get an expected return for sure if everything gets checked out. Those are pretty mainly safe. The only thing probably that will not really go well is in the event that the financial institution goes bankruptcy, then the insurance, the federal insurance, comes to cover those investments. I don't know if they're gonna cover your return, but they are there to cover your investment, initial investment. So for those that don't believe that financial institutions could collapse, recently there are two of the major banks of Silicon Valley in California declared bankruptcy. So about safest investments, there are other kind of investments that are also safe. So for example, the bonds or government bonds investments. Yeah, so you're getting a promissory note from the government of a country or a province to return this rate in certain time. and they are pretty much guaranteed. The province and the government, they're always collecting money. Taxpayers maintain those bank accounts filled. It's a constant flow incoming, so you're always going to be guaranteed with those. The downside of those safe investments for sure is that the return, it's pretty low. It's lowest as the inflation. So let's put it this way. Imagine that you live, the whole household, everything lives with $100,000 a year. And then next year, let's do crazy numbers, you will need either $110,000 at a rate of inflation of 10% per year, or you will actually, with the same $100,000, you will buy 90% of the things you were able to acquire previous year. So you're going to be kind of year after year in a little bit of a deficit. So all the kind of safe investments that we call government or GICs, guaranteed return, they are lowest than the inflation. So what that means is you pretty much putting money aside, but if you leave it too long, at a certain point, the inflation is going to have eaten all the returns and even the principal that you invested. Those are some factors to kind of consider when it's about safe return. It is a great experience. Yeah, it is fantastic to put some money in and then get the results with some return. Although they're like the downsides of that is that you're pretty much locked in, so you're not able to recover that money until the time is completed. And sometimes you withdraw the money before the time committed, but then they give the money to you, they just don't give you the returns. So you kind of have the money hanging in there for a while without any returns. So those kind of cover one of the most interesting questions of people asking about when they start investing. Start investing, I will call it more like it's part of a plan of the plan of your life. If it's something that goes along with your living, with your financial goals, it could be a very rewarding experience. My personal experience was great, was crazy, but I can tell it to you really quick. I didn't know much about investment and how to start investing until I got engaged with a financial institution. So then I started learning about corporate bonds, GICs, stocks. When I got to stocks, I got all excited because I realized that I was able to invest into a company, and that company, based on that performance, it'll actually will give me an average of how much return I could get. The downside of that is that sometimes external factors like a bad politician, a bad president, a dictatorship, change on the price of the oil, and many other factors that you cannot control and a country cannot control can really jeopardize those returns. So it was exciting for me to learn, and I got pretty lucky. So the way it works is I start saving a lot of money from my paycheck, but I start putting it inside of a registered savings account where I was living. If you start putting money saved on a registered account, the government will actually give you a lot of benefits. You'll get way more tax returns when you file your taxes. You will pay less taxes. The money will grow. So because it's money on the long term, you are more likely to choose long-term investment funds, which are designed for these persons, like I was at that moment, that I didn't care if 6 months from now the price of the fund will go down. I wouldn't care. I'll just buy more at that time. But my goal was at the end of the road there to have a real estate property. So I started investing. I didn't really pay a lot of attention and didn't put a lot of significance into those. Like I needed to be perfect and I needed to be super precautious. I learned what was enough for me, and then I started investing. And the way I started investing was I started putting the money aside every paycheck, so it was kind of cyclic. And I started putting the money in an account where I wasn't really able to pull it out. The only way I was able to pull it out, it was buying my first house, and then that did it. That kind of did it. I remember once I did something crazy. I had my money on all stocks of the financial institution I was working with, and then, hi Leslie, hey Crystal. So what I did was I took this risk. I got a text message from a great friend of mine. He showed me a company that was producing a Gorilla Glass. This is the glass that all the smartphones use that allows touch screen. And to me, everything checked out. I got everything that I needed checked out. And I jumped in and I bought the stock like $10 a piece. And I forgot about it. I don't know whatever heck happened to me, but I forgot about it. And then my daughter was about to be born, and it was time to buy an apartment. And I got all excited. And I'm like, oh shit, I got the money invested. I wonder how the stock is going. So I had to actually go back and log in, and I have a lot of problems logging in. It was a weird moment, and I'm finally logging in, and I check the balance, and I'm like, what the heck? This must be a mistake. This cannot be my balance. So anyway, call again and say, I kind of needed someone that tell me, yeah, it's true, wake up, that's you. So it turns out I had invested in a company that it was the perfect time, at the perfect moment with the right stock. That stock went just all the way up. It blew like crazy. So with all the money I had been able to save, and they start growing with compound effect, which is like a snowball. So the interest added this month will count as a principal for next month, and then it start growing and growing and growing. But that stock, I think I bought it like at $10, and the moment I sold, it was pretty close to $60. So it was beautiful, fantastic. Sold those stocks, so and then I had my money ready to buy the apartment. So, but about the investing, some of the other questions that I got from people was, hey, listen, I want to invest in something that I can manage. What would you recommend? My recommendation will be like, I'm going to return that question to you. What can you actually manage? So, for example, most of the people that wanted to invest is someone with a full-time job. With a full-time job, if you have a home, if you live with someone or even alone, and if you have another activity besides your job, so that means the time of the day, the amount of hours that you have to look after your investments, it'll be pretty reduced. Unless you're a fund manager or a portfolio manager that you do this for a living, I am not able to tell you that any investment I tell you are going to guarantee returns. There are some funds, smart funds. For example, there is a fund that mirrors the S&P 500. So what that means is that fund, you get a little fraction of all the companies that outperform on the S&P 500. So you got Apple, you get Coca-Cola, IBM, so all the big companies, and on certain percentages. Now, it also has some corporate bonds and government bonds. So what that means, that kind of it gives an equilibrium to the scale. So you got some aggressive blue chips that they make money every year after year, and they keep growing, Microsoft kind of thing, Apple kind of thing, Google. But you also have some other companies that they don't grow that much, but they are steady. For example, Department of Water of Massachusetts. There is a province, is a state in the U.S. They are not really equities, but they collect all the water bills from the state of Massachusetts. So they can't return much, but it's pretty safe. It's pretty like steady. So you can have some funds, you can find something, but again, when you start looking those funds and you don't have any idea what you're investing in, it limits your capacity of react or really follow or evolve. Because if you don't have any idea what the heck you're doing when you're investing, how would you expect to grow your portfolio and diversify your portfolio? So that was the other questions about give me a recommendation of a fund and I kind of like safely manage from home and all that. Look, if you don't have enough time to look at the portfolios, probably it's a good idea that you run to yourself or go to the bank or do it with a financial advisor. Do something called customer investment profile. So turns out for me to answer that question to you, I will need to ask you around from 7 to 12 questions. I will need to ask you what kind of investor, risk taker are you? If you invest with me like $1,000, what happened in 8 months from now when I tell you, hey, right now your $1,000 is more like 1,500? I guess you'll be pretty happy with that. But what if the investment advisor tells you like, hey, your shares right now are $200? There's a moment of panic. And those moments of panic, how would you likely to react? Would you pull the money? Would you invest more? Would you just calm down and understand that it goes in cycles? So there are questions really to be asked to you before a recommendation can be done. Those questions allow us to understand what's your risk level tolerance, how likely are you setting up your financial goals? So that means, is it short, is it medium, or is it long term, more like for retirement? Also, in terms of financial incomes, how likely are you willing to leave an investment invested instead of pulling it for panic? Because you have enough incomes to cover all your other expenses. You're not relying on this money that you're investing. So those are some of the many questions that are really required to recommend a portfolio. And the portfolios that I like it the most are called balanced. So what that means is, yeah, there will be years probably they skyrocket and they can give you, I don't know, 14 to 20% return. I have had major successes with that. However, it doesn't guarantee that it's always the same. So those balanced portfolios is portion of that is fixed. We call it fixed. What I was telling at the beginning is government bonds, guaranteed returns, GICs, CDTs. And then the other part is equities. Equities is more like investing in Coca-Cola, in Apple. Those are big companies called blue chips that they expect the stock to have a higher value next year and every quarter. And there are some other way more aggressive. They are not big as Coca-Cola or Apple or Google, but they're trendy. They're growing fast because the industry in the global market kind of requires from these companies. So they grow really quick. They get contracts with the military or the government, so they grow really quick. But all that kind of is all well balanced on a portfolio after we ask all these questions. So in terms of cryptocurrency, I do see a lot of future. I used to give a lot of advice in cryptos. And today, what I can tell you about it is that the world is not really prepared for an immediate takeover of the cryptocurrency. It is to rescue out of it. It is a technology that can be utilized by companies to become lighter, to avoid so many manual typing and input of data of big companies, so large volumes could be achieved faster. So that's productivity, and therefore that will be a more profitable company. But the world is not ready yet to do that transaction in cryptocurrencies. I don't know when that will be, but if you like it, there is a way that you can study from every month, every week, every paycheck you get, every payment. You can buy a little bit and do your research, kind of find out what the coins are for. So here's what I also realized about investing. 85% of the time when I got these questions, say, hey Andres, what can I invest money in? I say, sure, let's do a little bit of a personal assessment, see how that works. So it turns out you're off the market, you're trying to get 14 to 15% or even more than 10% annual return. I say, okay, and what's the money you're investing? No, I'm going to start. If it's okay with you, I say, yeah, for sure. You can start with $100, $25, whatever amount, the experience. What we also realized after doing the personal assessment is that you had a person had a large balance on a credit card. Let's call it $10,000. $10,000 paying 25% annual, so that's $2,500. So really, what advice could you give to one person looking to make 10% on cash account or stop paying $2,500 a year? To me, it was very simple. It was just a matter of numbers, being pragmatic. When you have a large debt after you, we tend to try to create more money at a faster rate of the credit card so we can make enough to pay that credit card and then continue growing. Just from red, jump to black and keep going. And I get it. I support it. To me, it's fine. We can do that. We can try that one. From a financial perspective point, from an energetic point, from like you can do it, yes, for sure you can do it. But from a pragmatic point, in a financial perspective, my total recommendation will be looking at what kind of debts you can actually reduce and pay less interest, that you actually have more money on the bank account. More money on the bank account is way easier for you to invest because you're most likely to be open to an investment opportunity, having the money and not having to pay a larger amount and then start investing. It's a little bit messy. It becomes a little bit messy when you want to do that combination. So that's my other advice. For all that, most of everyone that want to start investing now, what about taking a big stop and see, okay, where am I right now? Where's the money going out? If you really take a look of your incomes versus your expenses, and you include in your expenses all these financial interest, the monthly payments, how much you pay in an interest and credit cards and principal and everything. And as an exercise, if you're able to not pay that anymore, let's say that you're paying around $500 or $600 a month on credit cards and line of credit, even more. I know there's like easily $800. If you were able not to pay that but actually save it, I wonder how much that kind of satisfy the thirst of investment, of may see that money growth. So in summary, when I got that conversation, when I got that question, hey, how can I start investing? I'm very smart, so I want to start investing so I make enough money to pay what I owe. My always a pure truly advice will be like, my recommendation will be like, take care of the debt first, so then your investment strategy could be cleaner. That's my experience. That's what my experience told me. That's the way I did it. And then those are like the three primary questions when it's all about investing. So like how to start, what's the safest investment, what do I have enough time, what kind of fund you recommend me so that I can manage from home and I can make a few extra bucks and all that. Those are the main questions, and what I can tell you is the sooner you take care of the basics, what that means is budgeting. Have very clear your incomes, have very clear your expenses, have very clear your cash disposable, and play with the scenarios. What if I didn't have to pay all these in credit cards? What if I didn't have any more debts and I was working different? How much money will I actually have every month to invest or to start saving? And I will encourage you to, before you start investing, you start saving. That's totally different, change the game. So, well, the idea with these lives is for them to be more interactive. And if you have more questions about it, feel free to just type it underneath and put your comment. And I will be back. I wanted to be back next Saturday so we can chat. There are polls in the group, so you can actually select your topic What is happening next week is we're gonna dive in more into how to repair your credit and how to cut your credit card debt. I've left a post there so you can actually take a peek where to start. If you want to pull your credit report and come in next week to the live, feel free to do so. And I will see you later. Thank you for today. Bye for now.